The Board of Commissioners is the governing body of Clatsop County, all county service districts for which this body so acts, and it's the Clatsop County Local Contract Review Board is now meeting in regular session. Please join me for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have the roll call, please?
Here.
Commissioner Clement.
Here.
Commissioner Lee.
Here.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Here. Here.
I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So move. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We have some presentations tonight. Our first presentation is from the Arts Council. Hello, good evening. Come on up and have a seat, and we look forward to your report. Sit there. Maybe we could do a little. I know everybody here, but just for the record, your name and.
BJ Fayez. Dave Ambrose from Astoria.
Harold Gable, Gearhart.
Robin Risley, Cannon Beach.
All right, welcome.
Our chairman can't be here tonight, previous engagement. I'm the vice chairman of the Arts Council, and I wanted to just, for those who may not be familiar, there are 9 of us on this advisory council. We represent a wide geographic distribution in the county, from Cannon Beach to Napa. Inland, a little bit less representation. This past year, we've been working on organization. We have 4 subcommittees, one involving public art, one involving education, one in communications, and one in artist opportunities. And we'll be focusing on what we did this past year. Most of our effort was directed toward a survey, participant attendee survey. We collected over 800 individual surveys from people who either lived in the county or came here to visit and attended various art events throughout the county. It was a very universal effort. We all pitched in to get these surveys, and they were, because they were one-on-one with people who came to attend the events. It was a rather time-consuming effort, but we did meet the bar of over 800 surveys that were required by the people who are going to collate all this information and give us a report. The company that does these, that's doing this for us, is called the Americans for Arts, Art and Economic Prosperity Study. This year, BJ, how many of these surveys were being done nationwide?
330 this year compared to 182 from the last survey.
The last survey in 2010. We participated along with 11 other areas in Oregon, just in Oregon, from Portland to Eugene, much bigger areas than ours, and they were all held amazingly to the same standard of getting 800 surveys. So we feel pretty good about ourselves, being such a small area, being able to come up with as many surveys as Portland did. We'll know about the results from this collated survey sometime in May, so it's imminent. And the focus, of course, is how the arts affect the economics of our county. And we hope to have some data from that to show that, yes, the arts are vibrant and a great part of the economic community here on the coast, and that they are bringing in dollars to our communities through the restaurants that people go to after they go to events, people stay overnight, stay in our hotels, use our transportation systems, and provide that extra bit of money to provide more employment to events, to art events that happen here in the county. So we're looking forward to that survey. We also hope that it will serve as a starting point to look for grants to help us with various projects that we'd like to do to advance the arts here in the county and promote the arts. I think that's all I have to say about that, and I'll turn it, maybe BJ has something to add.
Just in terms of the survey, the value of the survey was really revealed in the last time that they did it in 2010, the Prosperity Survey number 4, and this will be number 5. You can see a lot of that value in 2 participants in Oregon jumping to 12, 182 in the nation going to 330, and it was results like 61 total $1 billion in aggregate expenditures that are directly related to the arts being revealed. 4 million jobs related to the arts are created. You know, it's a lot of things tie into this. So the point of this was really beyond what we already know about the educational and cultural value of the arts. We wanted to highlight this is absolutely critical to the development of the county as far as economics is concerned. It brings in a lot of dollars. It brings in a lot of attention that positively move things forward.
Before this began, we started in 2015, and Dave Ambrose contacted the Warrenton Astoria Chamber, the one in Seaside, and also Cannon Beach, just to get a feel for what public art was. And Astoria, Warrenton has a pretty good book with pictures and a nice demonstration. You know, Cannon Beach already. But one of the things that surprised us, this was the map that Seaside turned out, and it plots the 13 locations of public art. And beside that, there's a large description for the next 6 pages with pictures of the particular art, whether they're mural, freestanding, what form that takes, and a description of that. And we thought, wouldn't that be neat to somehow deal with things in the future? Well, that got set aside for doing the survey. We were supposed to start the survey in January, start that in 16 all the way through. It had to be finished by the 31st of December. Well, they were a little slow to get us things, so we didn't start till the end of February to collect things. So we missed Fisher Poets, we missed some of the other things, although we still had the metrics to stand by, and that is turn in, we were required to do 800, that was 200 per quarter. And we had a big push at the end, thanks to some of the members, but one in particular who really gained 100 and some in the last week and a half. So we more than made the 800, as David mentioned, 812 to go forward. So now that this has been turned in and we'll get these results in May, we're back on the track of saying, okay, what can we do about public art and making it aware? So John Rao, who's the assistant manager in Seaside Tourist Organization, 2 of us sat down with him the other day and said, okay, what can we do as far as that? And we thought originally, hey, we could do an app. We could have an app for that. Well, in checking into apps for this, and the closest estimate I got was between $50,000 and $65,000 for an app. So we were talking with John, and John said, no, I wouldn't be in favor of that. What would be a whole lot better thing to do, and he said, I've just scratched the surface, and I'm just starting with that, is hashtag Instagram. It's a public website. We could take pictures of public art. We'd have the date posted. We'd have the location posted. And it's going out there, so it's a real leap from what was done in paper-wise that we would put in various tourist locations to get it to a much broader media and not have to have either the labor or the expense with that. So what we've decided is talking to John, there's such a thing as North Coast Marketing Association, and it deals with Cannon Beach, Seaside, Warrenton, Astoria, all working together as a consortium, and they do this advertising as a unit. And so it looks like, John said, it's going to take me another 6 weeks to 2 months to get this worked out and get it all finalized. But then we're going to be able to see how that dovetails with us moving forward and having some real exposure for public art to draw the tourism in. It's a wonderful educational tool for children, and it's just wonderful. And the metrics, I think, with what we have for the results coming in from what BJ and David have said with this, it ought to tie in pretty darn well with us moving forward. So we'll know a little bit more when Mr. Rao has his results, and then we can move forward.
Okay. Arts are alive and well in Cannon Beach, and we're known as one of America's best 100 art towns. When we were getting together with all of the different entities that wanted to participate in the survey, we had the Cannon Beach Gallery Group, which is comprised of 12 different individual galleries in Cannon Beach, the History Center, the Coaster Theater, the Cannon Beach Chorus, we had the Cannon Beach Chamber of Commerce, and all were enthusiastically participating in the Americas survey and embraced the concept of collaboration of art forms in Cannon Beach. Thank you all, commissioners, for allowing us to be doing this. We appreciate the funding you've given us, and we look forward to next year when we'll be spreading the word to everybody of the results that we get. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. Is there any comments or questions from the board?
Of course, Mr. Chair, if I may. You make us so rich, the arts. I just want to thank each one of you personally and your group and all the people that you, and John Rail, isn't he just the most amazing person? Allah. So thank you for the work that you do, and thank you for the way you enrich all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to say something. Sometimes on the Arts Council, I hear a little discouragement that, well, why aren't we doing more? Why aren't we moving faster? But it's only been a few years. It's really been since its inception. And I think this group is incredible. They work really hard. They're very capable. They bring a lot together, and they work well together. And they're just, it's the most exciting board. They're very, very hardworking and enthusiastic and capable. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that it's really brought a lot of the art communities together, and not only the artists, but the venues, the art galleries are a lot more aware of each other now than I think when we started this art council. So you're bringing us together. It's really been great.
And I remember when I first, well, I was elected but hadn't taken office yet. I walked around to different galleries and artist groups and asking them, and they were still vying with each other, still fighting about, you know, this little piece of pie, who was going to get a piece of it. And after a few meetings, people started getting the vision. Well, okay, maybe we can help each other.
Yeah,
And
the
here we
pie's
are.
big enough.
So that is
Yeah.
a huge leap, as far as I'm concerned.
One of the catalytic discoveries is the fact that these cities on the North Coast actively work together. And why? Because they realize that you just don't go to Cannon Beach and stay there. You're going to drive up the coast. Everybody is going to get a piece of the pie, just as David mentioned. So that makes it really nice.
Thank you, Sarah, for your help with
Yes.
our group.
And
It's been
coming
my
and
pleasure.
giving your input. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
The next presentation is from the, about the Clatsop State Forest, from the Department of Forestry. Dan, come on up. Ty, welcome.
Good evening, Chair Lee, Commissioners, Cam. I was asked or given an opportunity to throw one small addition to the agenda, if you wouldn't mind, Commissioner, if I may. Wanted to present to the Clatsop County Commission a recognition of Keep Oregon Green, which is a program that helps educate the public about wildfire protection and keeping our forests from burning. Commissioner Thompson took this on as a little bit of a special project, but I asked her to help carry this message forward, as fire protection is always part of our message.
Okay.
So I'd be wondering if the commission would be welcome to take this on behalf of Department of Forestry and Keep Oregon Green.
You bet. We'll hang it.
Show everybody.
Show it to everybody.
Ooh, ah.
75 years.
Great.
Who created that?
And this over here, or
Yeah, just right back here by the clerk would be great.
That's beautiful.
I'm not sure the decor on
I
Thank
think
you.
there's a place for that on a conference room wall someplace, huh?
Oh, excellent. Thank you very much.
See it the next time you come to a meeting.
Okay, well, we were asked to come, and then we've been asking to come to provide the Board of Commissioners an update on the Clatsop State Forest, and we have two quick presentations. I know your agenda is very full. One is some of our accomplishments from 2016. It's a little blurry when you start talking fiscal years and actual fire seasons. You have a copy of our annual report, which is what we'll be going over briefly, and then Ty Williams, the Assistant District Forester, will go over a quick preview of our fiscal 2018 annual operation plan, which is the plans we're moving forward in the upcoming year. So, see if I can navigate this right. The intent of sharing this is, one, to put a face to the people who work on the Clatsop State Forest and in our other programs, which is Protection from Fire and Stewardship Forestry, who help enforce the Forest Practices Act, work with our landowners and other stewardship forestry landowner assistance programs. I won't read through this lengthy document, but you do have a copy there. This is available online on our website.
Can you move the mic a little closer to yourself?
Oh, how's that?
Better, thank you.
Okay, it sounds very loud to me right now.
Sounds perfect to me.
Okay, really, I provide a message to our partners here. I just want to say that in 2016, the Asteroid District was able to meet all of our objectives, whether it was in the fire program, the private forest program, or the state forest program, and that is really due to a great set of folks, and it wouldn't be possible without their professionalism and dedication to what they do. Protection, another term for fire. The Astoria District had a typical fire season last year, unlike the 3 years previous where we had record fire seasons back to back to back. So we were glad to have some moderate rain. Probably got a little too much this year. But my fire guys call it out a prevention program. We sent out our first engine off district to Eastern Oregon in the middle of July. When we have milder issues here, we can send engines to help out other places throughout the state. We responded to 37 fires in Clatsop County, and then helped out in multiple more just across the boundaries. We even had a chance to send one of our overhead folks to North Carolina when they had those terrible fires in November. Some of the things, here's just some faces to the people who man our engines during the summer. These are seasonal employees. Most of them are college students who are working their way through school. There's some stats there, and I won't walk you through all the stats, but so there's some smoke management and fire stats. Private forests, these are the folks who work with small and large landowners to ensure that they're meeting and exceeding the intent of the Forest Practices Act. And then they also work with OWEB in doing restoration projects on private land. So they're really getting into with, private forest landowners, whether they're small or large, and working with them to solve problems. Again, this is just more awards, working OWEB awards. This year we had over 7 OWEB projects on private land. So they do a great job as a connection between the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board and the private landowners. And always have to give dues to our administrative staff. I call them the glue that holds us all together, and they really are the face of the district when people come into the office. So it's a good shout out for them. Ty's going to go more over into state forests. I won't go through the details of that. Other than, our timber sale auctions from last year, we're up approximately 11% from the previous year, which is good news because that rolls up into additional revenues for both the county, the school districts, and the special taxing districts within Clatsop County. I went one too many. This is probably hard for folks to see. We had a tough time with this, the layout of this. We had 15 timber sales over the last year, and was generated an estimated net revenue of $29 million. Ty will go over some of the numbers later on. But in addition to that, we also sell miscellaneous forest products, which is mostly moss and salal to small forest product purchasers. And then we had over 600 public wood cutting permits. So, valuable service to the community, providing firewood to warm their homes during the winter. And then under forest roads, see if I can tweak this down a little bit. We have a fairly mature road system on our district. So we spend more of our time maintaining and what we call improving roads. So for last year, we did 73 miles of road improvement, but most of that is cleaning culverts, adding an additional rock to roads, improving stream crossings. Of all those timber sales I mentioned, we only built another 13 miles of road, and most of those are working spurs on ridges. So we really spend our time trying to make sure our roads are in a good condition to support our operations, and not provide any sediment in the waters of the state, and to keep those investments working for us rather than against us. And then we did install one improvement with a fish passable culvert on one of those sales. So that takes an old crossing that used to be a blockage to fish passage, and then install a new bigger either bridge or fish passable culvert that allows fish to move up and down the stream system. Recreation is another big topic for us, another big issue that we have lots of folks that are interested in recreating in the forest. We integrate that aspect with all things that we do, whether it's forest roads or marketing or reforestation. We have two major categories of recreation. One is motorized, which is ATVs, single track motorcycles, quads, side-by-sides, and that's primarily up at the Nikolai area. And then we also have multiple campgrounds with quite a few of them along the Halem corridor, including Spruce Run, and then there's one also up at Nat Creek. Quite a good information there. Very interested partners within the community. We have a partnership with Oregon Equestrian Trails at Northrop Creek Horse Camp. We're looking at new partnerships with other groups. We're working with the ATV clubs, and then, as dollars get tighter, their partnerships could be more and more important as we move forward to maintain the high-quality rec opportunities we already have. So here's some of the numbers. We had almost 16,000 overnight campers at our 4 campgrounds. That's quite a few. We talked about making $74,000 in revenue, but we do share that with the county. We spend about $700,000 supporting recreation and generate about $74,000 in campground fees. It's primarily a fee for folks. If you pay for something, you'll take better care of it. So we're not making a profit on it. It's a service we're providing for Oregonians.
Yeah, excuse me, could you go back on that one figure? Did you say 700,000?
That's statewide, though.
That's
Statewide.
Yeah, we were spending about 280,000
In the Clatsop Tillamook?
280, I'm just a Clatsop.
And those campgrounds are managed together, right?
The Clatsop is.
Just the Clatsop campgrounds?
Correct.
Around 280?
That's correct.
That's 700,000.
For our recreation program.
Gotcha. Thanks.
And we have about 20 miles of non-motorized trail, and 35 to 38 miles of motorized trail. And as of 2016, we had over 1,700 hours of volunteer hours, people working on the forest, and those numbers have gone up and will continue to go up. So those volunteer groups are critical in all of our success in maintaining these recreation opportunities. And page down. And of course, keeping our little trees growing is going to be really important. So we're always working on making sure we get trees back in the ground. We planted 1,480 acres and over 600,000 trees in 2016. Those numbers continued. I think we planted a similar number this year. We just finished planting this year, and we beat all the other districts getting trees in the ground this year. So our reforestation unit is very proud of the work they've done, and the sooner those guys get growing in the ground, the better. Okay, and this is just a quick org chart. We have 41 permanent personnel at the district and 11 seasonal firefighters that come on. So there's a lot of folks there who have spent a lot of time and are really dedicated to the work they do. And this is just a quick snapshot of different people who got service awards this year. And amongst those 7 people, there's 120 years of service that was just awarded for this year. So it's a dedicated bunch of folks who've put in a lot of years, really know the forest, really know the community well. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to brag about them a little bit in front of you all. So, and thanks to you, all the cooperators, partners, and the Clatsop County Commission is one of our most important partners. So I thank you for this opportunity. So that's the end of mine.
Okay, again, my name's Ty Williams. I'm the Assistant District Forester in the Astoria District. The second part of our presentation tonight will give you a brief overview of our 2018 Annual Operations Plan. The planning framework that this year's plan is developed under includes our Northwest Forest Management Plan, which was revised in 2010, our Astoria District Implementation Plan, which was updated in 2011, and also our 2018 budget direction. And this year, as Dan had alluded to, we have a pretty tight budget statewide. We've been asked to prepare a budget that reflects a decreased service level, and currently that includes hiring freeze in the state forest program, and that was prior to the direction that you probably recently saw in the news from the governor's office. So we'd already self-imposed a hiring freeze. I think ours took place starting in March, so in our state forest program, since we're self-funded.
Mr. Chair, can I just ask a question? So Ty, I live close to the forest, and I really want fire protection. So when you talk about a hiring freeze, I really do hope you're not talking about those temporary firefighting positions.
There is exceptions for emergency service positions and revenue generating positions. So I think the fire positions are definitely going to be a lot safer, and then it'll be through an exceptions process for us if we have positions that generate revenue to be able to get those vacancies filled.
Thank you.
So in this year's plan, we're actively managing on about 2,500 acres. That management is within the bounds of 14 primary timber sale operations, and the output from those sales is estimated to generate about 74 million board feet of timber, and with a net revenue of about $27.5 million. Of those 14 operations, we've identified 7 that have the potential for aquatic and riparian enhancement projects. Since 1995, when we began to report to the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board and track these types of projects, we've actually done stream enhancement on over 31 miles of stream on the Clatsop State Forest. We've also either replaced, upgraded, or removed removed 116 fish barriers in the same time frame. And it's equivalent to about a $11.7 million investment that's been made, which you are all partners in sharing in that, since that's part of our project work stuff. So, as we mentioned, with tight budgets, we are seeking grant assistance for a couple of these projects. So we've applied for a grant with the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. But we've yet to hear whether we've been successful there to try to offset some of our project work costs. As Dan mentioned, he stole a little bit of my thunder. We didn't do a very good job of giving each other our presentations beforehand, but this annual operations plan involves the construction of about 12 miles of forest road, but we are focused on doing improvement and maintaining a lot of our haul routes with the bulk of our project work to ensure that we don't have any sedimentation issues in the live streams with our haul routes. Also included in our projects this year, about 3 miles of road vacating and blocking. Again, since 1995, we've closed or vacated about 65 miles of road that's been tracked as part of that OWEB tracking. And this year's projects are roughly about $4 million worth of project work, which equates to about 13.5% of the gross timber sale value. This slide illustrates just how productive the soils are on the Clatsop State Forest. As you can see, when that tree was planted, it was about 1 foot to 1.5 foot tall. And I don't know if you can see that right where that arrow's pointing. That's what we call a bud cap. That's placed on the tree after planting to help mitigate browse by big game. Deer and elk mostly come and clipping the tops of the trees off or pulling them out of the ground. So in the first year of growth, that tree grew about 1 foot to 1.5 foot, and then the second season, nearly 3 feet. So that's just a testament to how productive our soils here on the Clatsop. So our reforestation unit, they do a lot of work throughout the year. In 18, it's expected that they'll be planting about 1,800 acres of initial plant, about 300 acres of interplanting. As Dan had mentioned, they planted about 650,000 seedlings in this year between January and the end of March, and next year it's anticipated that we'll plant about 700,000 seedlings. So,
since we're at the seedling,
sure.
A quick question. Somebody had mentioned to me, I was trying to do some research, and I noticed like 5 or 6 years ago there was a move to more diversification with seedlings and in hemlock and maybe some cedar. Mm-hmm. Is that still continuing, or have they been more focusing again on Douglas fir? That is continuing, although we aren't this year, because you can't just turn off because we're forecasting out 2 or 3 years our planting, so these seeds are already being sown. But next year we will reduce the amount of cedar we're planting to almost nothing, just because of the cost, just for budget purposes, because cedar are almost like candy to big game, and it's so cost prohibitive because every cedar we plant we have to tube and then maintain that tube. So, but over the last several years, we've planted cedar, and we will again next year, but we're always planting a diversity of species, including hemlock and noble fir and some alder. Do you have do you know off the top of your head if the percentage between hemlock and Doug fir right now?
On our forest, it's probably more even than in some of the eastern districts, like Forest Grove, where they're pretty much a dominant Doug fir zone. I'd say we're probably 60-40 or 70-30, probably Doug fir to hemlock. Once you get past the first summit into the coast, like in the Jewel Tidewater area, once you get over that summit, you'll notice the forest starts going predominantly to fir. It's just a drier site out there.
The Sitka spruce and the hemlock?
Yeah, Sitka spruce, hemlock more on towards the ocean, yeah.
Great.
Yep.
Yeah, the reason I asked is somebody had said something and I wanted to get some clarification on that.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah, no. Our recreation program on the district, we have 5 campgrounds that we manage with about 20 miles of non-motorized trail and just over 30 miles of motorized trail. We have 4 full-time positions allotted for that. Unfortunately, one of the positions that is vacant is in our recreation program. And as Dan mentioned, we had about 16,000 visitors to our campgrounds last summer. With our reduced staffing level and with our budget direction, we've been looking at ways to minimize our cost and make our workload more manageable. One of the ways that we're planning on doing that, or that's proposed, is to reduce the number of camping days at several of our campgrounds, shorten the beginning of our season and the end of our season, to focus more from almost like a Memorial Day to Labor Day. Some of our campgrounds in the past were open year-round, and then some of them were open from early in May to actually the end of November. So we're trying to shorten that window to reduce the amount of time we have to spend there. One of the other things we're doing is asking for help from a lot of our user groups, and they've been real receptive to that so far, and I think that's gonna be something that we're gonna build upon in the year ahead. One new piece of some new infrastructure we are doing is we are installing 2 vault toilets, one at Henry Ryerson Spruce Run Campground at our tent sites, and then one at Beaver Eddy Campground. Those are both located along the lower Nehalem Road. And over half of the funding for those vault toilets is through a grant from the Land and Water Conservation Development Fund. And then we're providing in-kind work and a small cash contribution.
Excuse me, what is a vault?
A vault toilet, it's like the concrete toilets you see at a lot of campgrounds. They're basically vandal-proof, although we still do get some vandalization of door handles and other things, but they can't be burnt down. So, but we've been utilizing just porta potties at those two locations, and we figure with this, by installing these grants, we'll be able to pay for our portion of them within about 4 or 5 years, just because we won't have to rent the porta potties and then have them serviced on a weekly basis.
Thank you.
And probably provide a better camper experience. Most of our motorized recreation is focused on our Nikolai Mountain off-highway vehicle area. That's off Highway 30 for those that aren't familiar with it. Again, they have one dedicated campground up there to motorized use and just over 30 miles of trail, and it is very popular. Same thing in that area of our business where we're focused on maintaining our current trail. Improvements we're making are mostly for safety, rerouting portions of the trail off of active logging roads to get them into the forest. And then this is an area where we're also building on our volunteer groups to get them to help us maintain more of that system up there. So that was the bulk of my presentation. Is there any questions?
I'm sure we have a few questions. We'll start out with Commissioner Sullivan.
Thank you, Chair. I heard an interesting thing at the FTLIC meeting. Commissioner Bob Main, I think the meeting had broken up, but he said, he just found out that state forests pay twice what private commercial timberlands pay for fire protection. Can you speak to this?
I'll let Dan speak to that.
I'll wait for the back. That is correct. Based on statute and direction from the legislature, public lands pay 100% of the fire protection costs. Private lands have a 50-50 match with general fund. So for easy math, if it's $2 an acre, if it was private forest land, you'd pay $1 an acre. If you were a public landowner, whether you're Clatsop County or Board of Forestry or the BLM, you're paying $2 an acre. And that's a decision that's made through statute at the legislature.
The legislature backfills the dollar?
Yeah, they would have to allocate the general fund as they do to private lands. They do not do that for public lands.
Right.
How do you feel about that?
I'm not going to offer an opinion on that.
Yeah, that's for the legislature to, yeah.
Another question, if I may, I have a couple questions. One is, we're told that ODF doesn't have adequate revenues to fund the reserves past 2020. That's what I keep hearing. But if you look back 4 or 5 years, ODF's revenue has increased each year, like we've done an increase this year. Isn't the problem really that your costs, primarily labor costs, keep rising faster than an increase the harvest can keep up with?
That's somewhat of a tricky question. Labor costs do go up. We have made reductions in staff, but we can continue to look for efficiency and effectiveness. We're continuing to do that with a workforce featuring process of, how do we manage our workforce in the future, knowing that those costs will continue as the costs with any governmental entity. We need to find a more permanent solution to that, and harvesting is not the only answer to solving that problem. So we need to look at workforce organization and then how we move forward. So it's a bigger, broader question we're still working on.
Oh, I know it's a big, broad question. I'm glad to hear that you're looking at many different solutions. The last one that I have is I know it's not an easy question to answer either. So if you don't mind, I know that when I looked at the proposed 2018 annual operating plan for Astoria District, it looks like there's going to be about 1,000 acres that will be sprayed with pesticides. And Clatsop, I know, has expressed concern with spraying in the past, and I'm wondering what progress has been made on identifying for the public the chemicals that are contained in the spray and whether ODF is considering mechanisms to notify the adjacent landowners prior to spraying.
Well, we do follow the Forest Practices Act and the label requirements, and we plan on a certain amount of acres, but not every unit gets sprayed, and not every acre on every unit gets sprayed. And some are hand sprayed, some are manually released. So part of setting up these plans is setting up a kind of a broad suite, and as we talk about what we're going to do, we're talking, Ty's talking about timber sales that we're planning for 18 that may not be harvested until 2021. So knowing exactly what you're going to do on each particular acre, I can't answer, but we will go through the notification process. We do notify adjacent landowners. We do post the areas that are being treated so the public can't go in there inadvertently and be exposed. So all of those safeguards are in place, if we do end up, doing a herbicide application.
Do you get a lot of comments, though, from the public about that? Because I'm hearing a lot about it. So
We
I
hear some.
imagine you guys are, too.
Yeah, we hear some.
So, do you see, okay, we'll talk, we'll continue talking about this. Thank you.
Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you. Well, don't you just live in interesting times, huh? I went, I've spent some time hanging out, and I say a good day is a day in the Pacific Northwest, and a great day is a day in the forests in the Pacific Northwest. So thank you for the times you've taken me out in the woods and helped me understand how you do your work. What I learned from being associated with forestry folk and with timber company folk is that it's not a monolithic structure. It's individual companies, individual organizations, and they have varying stances and varying ways of operating. So what I came away with was the need to have conversations to address the concerns that Commissioner Sullivan is referencing. For example, I know that we've heard, I have several friends who are concerned about the future of the planet and the role that forestry and timber operations play in that. And all I can say is I think it's vitally important that we establish forums where we can sit down and work together, because it's only by that respectful and affectionate collaboration that we'll be able to come to a mutually agreeable solution, which is what's required. I know there are some people who don't want to cut another tree. I've heard from them, and it's a philosophical position. I've heard from other people for whom timber is simply a longer-term crop. I feel, I think, a great emotional connection with the forest, but I understand we have to pay the bills. I also understand we need a habitable planet. So how do we have a habitable planet and pay the bills? And I think it's by those extended conversations. I wanted to appreciate the grace with which your firefighting staff and you two addressed concerned community members who did not understand the impact of a certain postcard they received. When you sent me a postcard and you said on your postcard, pay attention to this, it could cost you money, I got on my phone and I called you right away. Some people didn't and didn't recognize that. But I know that when the smoke was in the air and the sparks were flying, that you were there with your specialized expertise to fight that wildland fire. I know that my rural fire protection district was also there to deal with the fire in terms of the structures. You were all operating to protect my health, my safety, my home, and my stuff. So I'm grateful to you. I'm willing to pay what I look at as an incremental fire insurance charge, because it's my choice to live out in the woods where I put myself at risk. So I thank you for the service that you do for me. I look forward to continuing our conversations.
Very welcome. Thank you.
I have a comment. Over the last couple of years, I've been going out to some of these campgrounds and Lost Lake and the day use area. And what I've noticed is I've seen local people that are maybe part of our community that they don't have as much economic prosperity as others. And they're out there with their families, they're recreating, they're having a wonderful time. And they're not having to pay anything for the day use, as far as I know, because I was there and I don't remember paying anything. And it made me really happy to see that. So this is vitally important for families, for people's mental health. And I mean, this is a great service beyond just keeping the trees and access through these roads. It's vitally important for many people. And I read a study, maybe you're aware of this, that was done in Japan. They did this study of people that would go out into the forest just once a week. And what they found is they would check their blood pressure, their blood sugar levels, other ailments that people had. And they always were they were at normal levels after these walks. Over periods of time, through weeks and months that they would take advantage of walking in the forest, these people became healthier. I don't know if there's anything that we can do to let people know. Take a walk in the forest, you'll be healthier.
We try to get out every chance we get.
Well, I know you do.
Yeah, and thank you. For those who don't know, our campgrounds for an RV site, which doesn't mean you have to have an RV, but you can take an RV to this site, are $15 a night, and our tent sites are $10 a night. So it is a real bargain. And as Dan alluded to, we're not making a lot of money on this, but it is a public service that we provide, and part of our greatest permanent value rule.
That's
and,
right.
We do welcome anyone who would like to come out and visit the forest to do so.
Thank you.
Great. I wanted to speak to, I know in years past we've had the POPs, policy option packages. We did that for the work camp and a couple other, and I noticed in the last year or two, I was surprised I didn't maybe see a pop for more camping, like to address the Northrop Creek issue. Is the department kind of stepped back from that because of the lift in the legislature, or?
Yes, the agency did put it in its agency request budget to the governor's office, an ask for recreation education interpretation
For
this current upcoming biennium, and it was not included in the governor's recommended budget.
I see. That's why I didn't see it. I was waiting for it, and I think that as policymakers, I think we'll need to talk among our colleagues and push that, and so we can get that, push that through, because I think that backfilling from the legislature, I know it's kind of a slippery slope and that you're shy of it, but I think that this is a way that we can strengthen the recreation side.
I don't disagree, but as you know, we work for the executive branch, and if it doesn't make the GRB,
Right.
it doesn't make the GRB.
Yeah, I got it. Okay, great. Any more?
So, yeah, Mr.
Yeah,
Chair,
please.
just a question either for Dan or Ty. You know, from my perspective at least, after being here a year or so, it would appear that there's a really good working relationship, I think, between ODF staff and county staff. I'm just curious from your perspective, how you view that.
I'll let Ty answer that first.
Yeah, I would echo that comment. You know, we work a lot, probably mostly with your public works staff, and they're great to work with. You know, we're all managing for the common good of this, you know, citizens of Oregon and the citizens of Clatsop County. So, you know, it is a real collaborative relationship, and you know, your staff has been real good about being proactive and reaching out to us with the recent slide on the old Vesper Road. There's been good dialogue there. They got a hold of us right away to make us aware of it, and came in, had a meeting with Michael Summers, and so and you know, told us where you guys were at on it and everything, and how that would affect maybe our seasonal firefighting crews for out there, and then for us for the force management side. So really appreciate the work working together, and I know Dan is and our protection side has worked close with your assessment and taxation staff this winter, and I'm sure there was a big burden there, and there still is. So, but we can't echo enough the thanks for the hard work of staff of Clatsop County.
Good people.
Well, appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
Great.
Take questions from?
Sorry, Dave, not today. But you can definitely direct your, email questions to the department. Thank you very much. Thank you, man.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you. Our next, our final presentation tonight is the third quarter financials. And Monica Steele, come on up and we'll take a look at those and see how we're doing.
And I can just use that, right? Good evening. Before I get started, I just want to announce that you should have all received your 17-18 proposed budget document. It's up there for you. And then if there are any other lay budget committee members here, I have that for them as well. I want to thank my staff. I have an awesome staff. We had put on the budget calendar. We always say that we're going to have it a week before the budget meeting. And it is our intention to try to get it as soon as possible to you, but we don't want to put ourselves into a position where we can't. And so we worked diligently to make sure that you guys had this evening. And again, it's because I have an awesome staff. So
I just wanted to echo that. I know Monica and her staff really pushed hard to make sure we got the budget to you as early as possible, even to the point where it was really hard for me to even get a couple minutes to talk to Monica today, because they were really pushing to get that budget ready for you tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. I know I appreciate that.
no problem. So getting started, our third quarter overall, all funds continue to remain generally in line with the budgeted expectations. Staff continues to monitor areas where there's additional costs that are being incurred, and we're working with those departments to either help realize savings or to take appropriate measures for a budget adjustment. And at the end of the third quarter, taxes were 97% collected of the budgeted amount. So this slide here is a representation of the revenue collections for all funds through the third quarter, and the amount of approximately $34.4 million. This excludes beginning balances and transfers between funds. The bottom half of the slide shows the percentage of revenues collected and based on in comparison to the actual or budgeted amounts for the fiscal year. So we are currently at about 81.1% collected. This slide represents the general fund revenue collections. Some of this increase of 10% over the previous fiscal year at this time is in relation to the budgeted revenue being less, as well as the revenue increases in property taxes collected over last fiscal year, which is approximately $275,000 more. And room taxes being collected by approximately $40,000 more. And then also we received our charter franchise fee in the amount of $71,000, in addition to other incremental increases throughout the various departments in the general fund. This slide represents our general fund major revenue sources. So as you can see, and as I stated earlier, the property taxes collected are at about 97% of the budgeted amount. This does not reflect any prior year taxes or SIP monies collected. The timber revenues collected represent both the portion which remains in the general fund as well as the amount transferred to special projects per board policy. And at the conclusion of the third quarter, 100% of the budgeted amount of timber revenues in the general fund was collected, and 90% of the amount budgeted to be transferred to special projects has been received. This slide represents the payroll costs associated with the general fund. And as you can see, we're at about 71.5%, which is below the 75% mark. And while this is 71.5% for the general fund as a whole, there are individual org units within the funds that vary slightly, as we'll be seeing in the following slide. And so again, we'll make any necessary adjustments in the coming months. This slide here represents the majority of the org units within the general fund, it reflects all of them. And as you can tell, the majority of them are coming in as expected. We continue to monitor those org units that are running higher than should be and are anticipating bringing a budget adjustment before the board prior to the end of the fiscal year to readjust budget authority between organizational units. The county tourism org unit distributed room tax revenues to qualifying applicants in January in the amount of $142,775, and no further distributions will be made in this fiscal year, and so all remaining revenues that are received will be rolled into the beginning balance for next year. The transfers organizational unit exceeds the 75% mark, and this is a result of the third quarter timber transfer received, and so we will be bringing an adjustment before you guys for budget authority purposes only in the coming month. This slide is a breakdown of the expenses budgeted within the Board of Commissioners org unit and how the budgeted amount of $88,560 has been spent. Through the third quarter, 84% of the budgeted amount has been spent, which is above the 75% mark. And so on the agenda this evening, there's a budget adjustment in the amount of $2,000 to increase the appropriation authority to $90,560. This adjustment is a precaution to prevent this org unit from being in violation of budget law based on known upcoming expenses associated with education and travel. Of the current $15,040 remaining in appropriation authority, $11,535 of these funds are allocated for the remaining monthly commissioner stipends. In addition to stipend expenses, there are monthly costs associated with phone, postage, which approximate $1,000. Should the budget adjustment of $2,000 end up not being expensed, then those funds will roll into the 17-18 beginning balance for the general fund. This slide is a representation of the breakdown by commissioners for expenses in education, meals, mileage or rental car, and fuel charges, parking, and lodging. The total amount budgeted in these line items is $13,500, and through the end of the third quarter, $12,692 has been spent, which is 94% of the budgeted amount.
Mr. Chair, may I? I have information about this. I'll hold it until we get to the budget item where we talk about the adjustment.
Okay. So this slide represents the organizational units within the Public Health Department. Construction of the household hazardous waste facility continues to progress slowly, which is evident in the 3% of budgeted expenditures. A design build contract has been awarded to Helixo Construction, and as we move into spring, projected expenses will continue to be incurred. Project expenses. Completion of this project is anticipated for the 17-18 fiscal year. The tobacco prevention is running well below the 75% mark, and this is a result of decreased staff in this program. They have, however, hired a new part-time employee by the name of Julia Hess, who began working on March 1st, so expenses will begin to pick up there. The emergency preparedness org unit is also coming in well below the budget as a result of the public health director's staff time being reallocated to other programs. The At this time, the vacancy created by Michael's promotion has not been filled, but an additional environmental health specialist position is in the requested budget for the 17-18 fiscal year. This chart represents the roads department. Road admin and support is coming in right on budget. Road maintenance and construction is significantly below the 75% mark, which is customary for this time of year, given the fact that we need to wait for weather to be more permittable for projects. The equipment and replacement fund has purchased 2 of their 4 budgeted pieces of equipment. The 2 remaining purchases are significant in cost, and so those will be purchased in the coming months. The road district budget is significantly above the 75% mark, and this is because these are funds that are transferred to the general roads as the revenues are received. Any additional funds received that exceed the amount budgeted to transfer will roll into the 17-18 beginning balance, so this will not be in violation of budget law. This slide represents all the remaining funds within the county that have not been addressed. As you can see, the majority of these funds are below the 75% amount. As stated in previous quarterly financial presentations, it is a recommended best practice to have a fund balance of at least 2 months operating. So by not spending budgeted contingency, the fund expenditures as a percentage of the budget appropriation authority is less than the 75% amount. The county clerk records fund is over the 75% mark as a result of microfilming project that was completed. And aside from the indirect cost charges for the 4th quarter, no additional funds will be spent here, so they will be fine throughout the rest of the year. The video lottery fund is also coming in well above the 75% mark, and this is a result of the funds that get transferred to the planning department for economic development. And once the budgeted transfer amount is met, no additional transfers will occur. Expenses still to be incurred in the 4th quarter for video lottery is the 4th quarter payment to Cedar, as well as any Arts Council invoices that come through for the allocated amount.
May I ask a question?
Of course.
The video lottery, that's the video machines that are locally in the county? How much of that do you get?
We receive back from the state approximately $300,000.
What's the percentage of what goes out? Do you know?
I don't know. The state receives the funds, and then we get a percentage back based on the usage within our county. I don't know the total amount that the state receives.
Could I add a comment? That's part of what's been considered at AOC, because the state committed to a certain percentage in public law and then failed to deliver on that. So that's one of the efforts that AOC has extended, is to get actually the money we're due that we haven't been receiving.
Okay, thank you.
So in conclusion, as stated previously in the presentation, the org units that are exceeding the 75% margin, we are continuing to monitor, and we're working with those departments to hopefully realize savings or else bring a budget adjustment before you. Some of these adjustments may be to reallocate the budget authority, or in some instances, we may need to take from contingency. Are there any questions? If not, I would just like to remind everyone that the countywide budget meeting will be held here in the Boynton on Tuesday, May 9th, beginning at 9 a.m. And we will also be holding the Forest Service District budget meetings here on Wednesday, May 10th at 5 p.m. prior to the regularly scheduled board meeting. If necessary and time allows, additional time to review the countywide budget can occur at the conclusion of the district budget meetings, or else time has been reserved on Thursday, May 11th from 9 a.m. to noon. Copies of the proposed budget are available now, and we will have it also on the county website beginning tomorrow. So, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for that report, Monica. Have a great evening.
I'll see you in a minute.
That concludes our presentations from tonight. Now we're going to move on to business from the public. This is an opportunity for anyone to give a 3-minute presentation about any item on the agenda except public hearings, or any topic of county concern that is not on the agenda. People wishing to speak during business from the public must fill out a public sign-in comment card. If you haven't done that already, they're right over there. I see I've got a few tonight. Our first guest is Carolyn Eady. Welcome, Carolyn. Come on up. Name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name's Carolyn Eady,
Good evening.
1890 Southeast Sheridan, Astoria. I'm here to address...
Carolyn, can you pull that microphone closer so you get for the
Sure,
record?
be glad to.
Thank you.
That's better. I'm here to address some issues related to the 2018 operating plan that we heard about earlier. I want to preface, could I ask the chair, would it be possible to have one additional minute?
Absolutely.
Okay, that would help. I really respect the foresters. I worked with them. These gentlemen have taken me on tours, and I've been involved in forestry for 20 years. And they are professional. They work hard. At this level, they don't have much wiggle room. The Board of Forestry sets the goals and the policies, and then by law, the forester, the state forester, sets the amount of cut and where. So they are given specific guidelines. So I think they are trying to do the best they can. But given that, I have some grave concerns about what they have been instructed to do. In this particular 14 cuts, 14 operations, every single one of them involves clear cutting of our older trees in that 70 up to maybe 90 or 100 years old. Every one is in a northern spotted owl habitat. I don't know, approximately half are in marbled murrelet habitat, and about a third of them, as they discussed, are in aquatic areas of concern. So I think one of these gentlemen was quoted back in 2015. We had 14,000 acres of these older trees. And I want you to remember, this is it. There's no federal land. If we're going to have forests, it's going to be on the state land or nowhere. So, in fact, Homestead was what brought this up, as you recall, last year and the year before. That's kind of the poster child for what we will be seeing is clear cutting of older forests, as old as we have, practically. Now, why are they doing this? And it's because, as you know, the department is going to go into the red in 2020 in terms of their operating fund. And also, there's intense pressure, as you probably know. Mr. Josie said, if we need a new forest management plan, and the first thing that has to happen is CLATSP has to cut those old trees to keep the spotted owls out. I mean, they're viewed as a threat. He called it a cancer. So there's pressure not to let the owls in. Okay. One of the criteria, in fact, the first criteria these gentlemen have to work with is the most highly marketable timber. And that's it. It's the timber they're aiming to cut. And they had cut about 1,650 acres last year. Not cut, it was in the 2016 AOP. And now this year, they're targeting 1,900. If we had 14,000, and if it keeps up at that rate, it's like 7 to 10 years, they'll be gone. They may not plan on doing that, but it is stated specifically that at the end of 20 years, the department will be back in financial crisis again. So this is not, they said they will not have sufficient trees of the age that could be cut. So it's not sustainable, it's a short-term solution. I'll wrap this up quickly. So we need, I think, CLATSP can't be the piggy bank for the state. This these are valuable treasures. They're the most important trees for taking carbon out of the air. The people love to recreate. One of them, Spruce Run, they'll have to close that during the period when it's being operated on. So I'm just asking you, it's not the best science. It's not healthy for our community and our economy. And I hope you will take the time to look on the website and get the details. Plus, there's going to be not just the hand spraying, 1,400 acres of aerial spraying of herbicides. Thank you. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Okay, here we go again.
Our next guest is Diana Berry. Diana, come on up and state your name and address for the record, and welcome. Good evening.
Thanks for inviting me. Diane Berry, 89605 Lewis and Clark Road, Astoria. I hope I can make it through what I wrote because I have a virus and I never know when a coughing streak is going to go on. So anyway, my name is Diane Berry, local Astoria resident, wife of a retired Oregon Department of Forestry staff member, business owner, founding member of North Coast chapter of Oregon Equestrian Trails, and a 15-year member of the Astoria District Oregon Department of Forestry Recreation Advisory Committee. I was asked to give a brief comment and update on the possible closing of ODF's Northrop Creek Horse Camp. As many of you know, ODF had planned on a very limited and restricted use proposal for the camp starting with this upcoming 2017 camping season. North Coast chapter of OET, and especially myself, have been in on the planning of the camp, including design, while providing labor hours and financial support for years. This is one of the best laid out horse camps in the United States, and especially in Oregon, as I have camped or visited quite a few. That being said, OET was disappointed and shocked to find the restrictions were going to be put on the camp without any pre-decision input by OET and the local horse community. We immediately circled the wagons through word of mouth, Facebook, newspaper, and of course our own wonderful Senator Betsy Johnson. Outraged horse campers and trail riders were encouraged to phone, email, and contact their senator to help persuade ODF to not close the camp under the rules they were proposing. We all understood that ODF was under budget constraints, but we as horse owners are used to hard work looking for answers to problems. We had a pre-meeting with ODF Astoria staff before the April Recreation Advisory Committee meeting. We tossed around ideas back and forth to help with their budget cuts and how to make Northrop run more efficiently and how to increase the usage out there. Being that Northrop Creek Horse Camp is not close to anything, it hasn't always been used to its potential capacity. It's out in the middle of nowhere and no fast way to get there. Horse owners and horse campers, just by the prohibitive cost of owning and maintaining a horse, makes us a minority recreation group. We can't help it and shouldn't be punished because of that cost factor. We know that the horse industry in the state of Oregon and surrounding states put a great deal of money into the economy. Since the pre-meeting and the ODF Recreation Advisory meeting, we have been working with ODF staff on our combined ideas for the camp. Our OET chapter met out there last Saturday, and 15 of us worked for a total of over 35 man-hours plus machine hours, clearing the road, camp, and trails near the camp. We have also offered some financial support for the camp and have also set up a Facebook page for Northrop Creek Horse Camp. We have taken over marketing of the camp, which ODF really does not do, but we are missing one very, I emphasize, very key resource in making the camp more successful. That is some type of reservation system for the camp. ODF has been balking at the idea, saying it would cause too many headaches. We as horse owners are very resourceful, and there's nothing we can't usually solve. We propose a reservation system of some sort so that horse owners can reserve a campsite on Friday and or Saturday nights only. Many campers will not travel up to 6 hours to get to the horse camp to find no sites available. We would appreciate the Clatsop County Commissioner's help in convincing the ODF Astoria office to let us try this reservation idea for a 2-year trial period starting in June of 2017 and continue through 2018, and then reevaluate, hopefully, the increase in usage by a limited reservation system.
Thank you very much.
I'd actually be for that. I've been a horse mom. I've traveled with those horse trailers. It's a tough thing, and if there are no places to stay, it's a bad deal.
Our next guest tonight is Mr. Dunzer. Come on up and state your name and address for the record, please. Welcome and good evening.
Shame. I'm a vulgar person. John Dunzer, 2964 Keepsake Drive, Seaside, Oregon, Clatsop County, USA World. 14 years ago, I came into this county, and I've been interested in economic development, long before the county commission was interested in economic development. But it's nice to see that they are interested in economic development now. I have a project that I was pursuing with Portland Gas and Electric. It had to do with reducing the emissions from their 4 power plants in Port Westward. The science, first of all, I was at the Science March, and that reminded me that I should come to the county sometime. I think the Science March was down here in Astoria over the weekend. That's as I remember it. And I am a scientist. I is one. So we developed this wonderful project that can take all the emissions out of the air from the largest emissions producer in the state of Oregon. And furthermore, the utility thinks it's a great idea because I can pay them back for all the costs that to take that emissions out. And they think it's wonderful, especially with cap and trade coming down the road. It's being studied in Salem right now. So I get to the planning department down here. I don't know what you call them here. What do they call them?
Community development.
Community development. Well, I wasn't trying to develop a community. I was just trying to get a plant built on already zoned industrial land here in Clatsop County. No variances, no zone changes, no dredging, no nothing. Just a really good, clean, no controversy, no LNG, no any of those things. So I request a pre-application checklist kind of a thing, where they go through and they say, these are the problems you're going to have and so forth. So you have to go through this thing because I can't get an air quality permit or a water quality permit without saying that this project is going to be compatible with the land. So I furnish all the information they want. So it comes back to me and it says, well, we can't really determine whether you're compatible until we get your application. These are the 2 areas that are problems. And I said, well, here's all the information on those 2 areas. Well, it's too late now. And I can't go ahead to get the air quality and the water quality because I can't get this form signed. Therefore, I don't have the permits. Therefore, I can't file the application.
I'll give you a couple, 2 more minutes. John.
So we got $400 million project that a lot of people want, that's very good environmentally, that the science people are all marching up and down about, that everybody says we want clean air and clean air. And you know what kind of reaction, because you sat there when I talked to Dirk and he said, I don't want to know anything about your project. That was the kind of attitude we had 5 or 6 years ago. Okay? It's time to change. We have a wonderful project now. It produces fuel out of biofeed for the aircraft up in PDX. We have that project. We're going to be producing aircraft fuel for them out of wood waste. It's a great project. We're going to be getting rid of the emissions from that, and I can't get anywhere. Not anywhere. They say, well, if you don't like it, sue us. That wasn't you. Hey, you know who it was. Okay? So we got to sue you to get a form filled out that everybody knows all the information is already there. This is just leftover garbage. And this is what holds things up. And you talk about economic development? Who the hell in the corporate world wants to do economic development in this kind of an environment? I would welcome somebody just sitting down with me for 10 minutes. I could put this whole thing to rest. Nothing. Anyway, I would really appreciate it. I wrote a letter to the county manager at that time. That must have been 2 or 3 ago, sorry. And, you know, I never got a response. But I don't know what to do. So I guess I should sue you. I don't really want to sue you. I don't think anybody can win.
Thank you, Mr. Dunzer. Have a great evening. Okay, our next item is the consent calendar. I'm looking for a motion to the consent calendar.
So move.
Second.
We got a motion, second on the consent calendar. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Our next item, we're going to move through the business agenda today. Our first item up here is on page 33. This item is the 2016-17 appropriations adjustment for the County Board of Commissioners. May I have the staff report, please?
As stated previously during the quarterly financial reports, this appropriation adjustment within the Board of Commissioners organizational unit is a precaution to avoid being in violation of budget law due to unanticipated increases in travel and education costs. Should the additional appropriation authority go unspent, the funds allocated from contingency will simply roll into the 17-18 beginning balance of the general fund. Staff advises that the board approve the appropriation adjustments as required by ORS 294.463. Any questions?
Does any members of the board have any questions for staff?
I have some information I want to share. So it isn't exactly a question for staff, but it's part of the discussion that I think will inform the discussion.
Okay. Did you want to wait till after to deliberation on that, or did you want to wait till, you want to do that now? Did you want to?
What do you think?
Do these questions include staff?
Perhaps, because my question really would be for staff. Last time at the board meeting, I heard a doubling of the amount authorized for county council. I don't have any problem with changing the amount authorized for county council. That hasn't been changed in 4 years. When I looked at the amount that had been appropriated for the line item for board travel and education expenses, that hasn't been changed in 4 years either. So I wonder why we aren't considering what needs there actually are, and so that staff brought forward a recommendation without consulting with all of the board members about what the travel plans are is confusing to me. So I asked for data. I got your letter, by the way. I asked Cam for data. I prepared a report to the board. You all have a copy of that report. There's a report in that the clerk of the board has. I'd like to read it into the record now. In order to serve Clatsop County residents more effectively, I want to discuss some issues related to serving as a commissioner. Reimbursement for all actual and necessary expenses incurred on county business while outside the county is both required by the county charter and essential for commissioners doing that business. I think the purpose of county government is to deliver services, especially to the people who live here. My goals for my own county service are, number one, housing, affordable and available for those who live and work here. Number two, economic development, ecologically sustainable to create family wage jobs. Number three, resilience, supporting preparation, response, and flourishing afterward for all people in all hazards situations for greater public safety. The acronym for all this is HER. I believe that all commissioners have goals for their service on the board, and I want to discuss them at a board retreat or work session or sessions. In the context of providing efficient and effective services to serve the people and the place, I perform liaison assignments. Many of my liaisons are outside Clatsop County, involving travel that takes time, energy, and money to support. Other liaisons are in-county, and they also take time, energy, and money to support. In-county travel expenses, mileage, and meals are not reimbursed. Outside county travel expenses are, as required by the county charter, in a line item in the budget. How does my work and the work of my fellow commissioners integrate with each other and the work of staff to benefit county residents? The answer to that question is defined in the board's strategic plan, its mission statement, and its goals. Absent the whole board's definition of its mission statement, strategic plan, and goals, I abstained from voting for the county budget in 2015 and gave my reasons for doing that in writing at that time. I called for the whole board to define its work and a work plan with goals. I didn't see an appetite for that process or result from others, and I promised to pursue it on my own. I've done that. I've defined my goals above. I've pursued relationships and collaborative partnerships to implement these goals into reality. That includes attendance at 3 conferences: the Earthquake Engineering Research Institute, March 9th in Portland; Mass Timber, March 27 through 30 in Portland; Oregon Prepared, April 11 through 14 in Sun River. In these and in every travel and training opportunity, I minimize expenses by billing as little as possible. Often there's no lodging and minimal meals. I depend on the generosity of friends and family for lodging and meals, and often eat energy bars and takeout food from the grocery store deli. Mileage is the main portion of my expenses, except when it saves time to use a hotel. The board rules are incomplete in that they contain no ends policies and thus don't allow us to measure our own or our county manager's progress toward meeting them. There is also an arbitrary limit on travel and training to 20% of the total line item for travel and training expenses allocated for each commissioner, with no correlation to outside Clatsop County liaisons or activities. I received a letter from the board chair that's attached. I requested and received data from the county manager about the amounts authorized and expended in the past 4 fiscal years for this travel and training line item. That's also attached. Notice that the line item use has gradually increased over that 4-year period, but the amount authorized has not expanded, nor has it ever been exceeded, nor is it related to workload, goals, or plan. Notice also that we have not had a discussion of commissioners' work, that's commissioners plural, all of us, what it is and how it integrates with staff or how it relates to goals. All these questions need addressing. So for me, I appreciate the efforts of the finance manager to comply with local budget law. I'm all for that. I'm all for that. I have quite extensive experience, actually, with local budget law. What I'm looking for is that this County Board of Commissioners has goals, has a plan. We did visioning in 2014. What needs to happen in my mind after that is that vision is translated into goals, is translated into a plan, and then we let our finance manager know, we let our county manager know what support do we need to implement that plan. So yes, we're tracking the financial expenditures. What we're not doing in my mind is looking at community needs, because whatever our plan and goals are, they relate to community needs. And I see unmet community needs in housing, in economic development, and in resilience. So I work on those.
Thank you.
May I clarify something?
Sure.
So when we do the budget process, we, specifically in the general fund, we maintain a base budget for all general fund departments. And so when those budgets are presented to the departments for them to build for the next coming year, they are given the same amount that they were given in the prior year. And then we look historically on how the spending levels were, and then they make requests for additional funds if necessary because they're, you know, working on a program or something. So then the county manager and myself meet with those departments and review their needs that they have. And then we also look at the historical spending levels. And so the reason that the Board of Commissioners budget has remained the same is because we've looked at the historical levels, and since they were coming in under budget, we maintained that base budget amount. In regards to the county council's contract amendment, there was not a budget adjustment, it was only a contract amendment because we have budgeted for the last several years $110,200. And so that amount still maintains the same amount, but her contract was only for $75,000. So it was a contract amendment, it wasn't a budget adjustment. At the time, during the the budget committee meetings, that is the opportunity as a budget committee to be able to say, we need to look at the spending levels here. So there's an opportunity at the budget committee to address those concerns. But all general fund departments are given a base budget amount. And that's how we build our budget, to try and maintain financial responsibility.
And I appreciate that you are extremely financially responsible. And so am I. I also feel it's the job that I have as a county commissioner to look at unmet county needs, to look at developing resources that will benefit the whole county, and insofar as possible, to do that collaboratively with each other and with staff. And so I think what I'm seeing is that as we're more of a complex adaptive organization, because we're seeing needs in housing and economic development and resilience, we've got a pinch point in the process. So I appreciate your clarification. And I would look for discussions next month about this, because I think everybody who's sitting here is sitting here because we want to make a difference in our community. We're unified in that. We may not have the exact same things, but we are working together. We heard our arts community talk about the benefits of collaboration and to have a unified approach to benefit everybody. I think we're in a growth mode now, and we need to carry that forward.
Shirley, could I ask a question? Sure. So I'm having a little difficulty connecting things here.
So am I.
Okay, so this letter went to Commissioner Thompson. We are looking at the appropriation adjustments, and then the response by Commissioner Thompson. I don't quite understand how they're connected. Could you clarify that, please?
I'm happy to clarify. I've had travel expenses denied.
Oh, I understand that.
Well, yeah, we've talked about that. And there was plenty of money in the line item, but it was refused. So I don't think that's a good way to proceed as a collaborative entity. So when we talk about what should our line item be, yes, we're dealing with it for this biennium, but we're about to enter into next year's budget considerations. When is the right time to bring this forward? I thought now was the time to bring it forward, so we all had time to think about what does each one of us want as a goal for ourselves, and maybe you don't have them, that's fine. I have goals. I didn't know all of the expenditures I would want to have, and I only use them because rather than turn the money back and not use it for the benefit of developing services for county residents, I wanted to make use of that to the fullest extent possible.
With all due respect to Commissioner Thompson, I don't see how pursuing relationships and collaborative partnerships satisfies the definition of liaison responsibilities outside of the county. And I respect the fact that you've, I've allowed it to get to this point. And now we have to make a budget adjustment. I think the letter basically outlines my concerns, and I think that with your statement here and the information that will inform the county manager and budget to consider possibly the an adjustment for future years to allow to set that bar a little higher.
Thank you. I'd be grateful for
Now,
that.
that being said, I think it's important that we understand the structure and the responsibilities of a home rule county and the way we interact with to pursue those goals in the spirit of the charter. And so I think that my letter is fairly clear. I think that this is a very, very minor budget adjustment. Hopefully we won't have to come back in a month and do it again. So what I'm asking now is that we just, kind of rein ourselves in a little and caution ourselves, and so we don't have to come back and make another budget. I have a couple of travel things that I need to do. We got to wing this until June. So that's my concern, that we don't try to make another budget adjustment and that we live within our means. And so that being said, if there's any other comments or questions for staff, we'll look at a motion to approve this budget adjustment. And that being said, I would like to, take this conversation in the considerations of Commissioner Thompson and to introduce that into the budget conversation for the next fiscal year.
Good.
Fair enough?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
But I'm sorry.
right ahead.
I still, the letter has to do with receipts. Your reply doesn't address that, and now we're doing a budget adjustment. I'm just having a hard time connecting all this. Is this not something we should?
We haven't talked about the receipts, and either has Commissioner Thompson, and the only problem with the receipts was that they were not given to staff in a timely manner.
I was not timely,
And
no doubt.
and that's, that's what happens, and, staff, help me out here. Statutory ORS dictates that you need to have these receipts for, go ahead and clarify this for me.
As far as the receipts, the board policy requests that they be turned in, I believe it's on a monthly basis.
Yeah,
It's
no
not
later than the 10th of the month.
Yeah, and so statutorily, we have to just make sure that you don't violate budget law. So if, come June 30th, we get receipts in the month of July that are for the month of June, and then you have gone over, we can't come back and do a budget adjustment. So if you overexpended, then we would be in violation of budget law.
So, and I didn't do that. I didn't do them timely. It took me a while, Sarah, to hire somebody out of my own pocket to come and help me with the paperwork. Because I kept thinking, I'll get to this, but, I didn't. I was late on this, no doubt about it. But I didn't violate statute. Yeah, I violated the board rules because it wasn't within 10 days after the end. Because it took me a while to find somebody responsible and reliable to support me administratively to do that paperwork. And that's the issue about the receipts.
And I understand that, and I'm really thankful that you were able to get those into us, and I appreciate that.
Mea culpa, slow on the
more clear for
receipts.
you?
Thank you,
Okay,
yeah.
well, then I'd entertain a motion to approve the,
I'll make a motion, Chair.
okay.
I'll second it.
I move that the board approve the appropriation adjustments to remain in compliance with Oregon budget law per ORS 294.463.
Did you second, Leanne?
Yes, sir.
We have a motion to second to approve the appropriation adjustments to remain in compliance with Oregon budget law per ORS 294.463. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Our next item tonight is page 37, April 4th, high auction bids. Can I have the staff report? Serpa, good evening. Welcome.
Good evening. So yes, on April 4th, I offered 10 parcels for sale. Of those 10, 4 met or exceeded the minimum bid. 3 of them were adjoining property owners, which is always good. So we totaled $52,250 from that auction, and I am here asking you to accept the high bids and authorize the chair to sign the deeds.
All right. This is quite clear. Do any of the commissioners have any concerns about these high bids? We don't really have a lot of options here. We should accept the bids, it's my opinion, or we can reject them and kind of get sideways with county management policy number 4.
Chair Lee, I move to adopt the resolution in order accepting the high bids and authorize the chair to sign the deeds.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further deliberations? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries unanimously. Our next item tonight.
Excuse me, I just wanted to say I really appreciated the report. It was very well detailed and easy for me to understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Serpa's good.
So now that you have approved and accepted the high bids, I have to make a return out of all the funds that we received at that auction. As I stated, we received $52,250, and by Oregon Revised Statute 275, it says that we can keep cost of the auction, what it took to put the auction on, including legal notice in the paper, postage, legal fees, recording the publication, and staff time and recording of the deeds, and that is $1,821.01. So the net balance after that is $50,428.99, which will get distributed to the taxing districts, which have suffered a loss because these properties were all tax foreclosed.
Great. Thank you for entering that into the record, Serpa. And we'll just move on. You get to stay in the hot seat. We're going to move on to page 51, approval of the sheriff's return of sale from April 4. So let's go ahead and hear that staff report and move towards an adoption and resolution order.
Pretty much what I just stated. And the balance goes to the taxing districts because we hold those tax foreclosed properties for them and to be sold, and monies go back to them. There is in this ORS a requirement that the sheriff sign the sheriff's return of sale. I am deputized by the sheriff to conduct the sale, so therefore then the sheriff signs the sheriff's return of sale. And he did sign that and approve it on page 55. And there is a resolution in order for you to accept the sheriff's return of sale.
Oh, thank you for that staff report. And we do not have any other alternatives here, and so I would look for a motion, please.
Mr. Chair, I move to adopt the resolution in order approving the sheriff's return of sale.
Second.
We have a motion to second to adopt the resolution order approving the sheriff's return of sale. Seeing no further deliberations, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item is the award bid for bulk fuel purchase, page 67.
Good evening, Commission. Michael Summers, Public Works Director, Clatsop County. Before you tonight is a thing we do every year on an annual basis, which is to solicit companies to provide bulk fuel services. We have 3 tanks throughout the one in Astoria, one in Swenson, and one in Jewel. This bulk fuel is countywide. The road department or the Public Works Department makes the purchase, and we get reimbursed from the sheriffs and the planners and building inspectors and so on and so forth. We had 3 bids, one from Jackson Oil, Carson Oil, and Wilcox and Flagle. Carson Oil had the most favorable price, and I can direct you to any questions.
Mr. Chair, may I?
Yeah.
I've been dealing a lot with resilience, and the 5 lifelines, and fuel, of course, is one of them, including yesterday at Seaside Hospital, talking about the fuel needs.
Mm-hmm.
Are you working with the emergency manager as well as Carson Oil and getting ready for whatever we need to get ready for concerning fuel oil?
What we do is, in the winter, we really work diligently to have as much fuel on hand as possible with doing some just routine stuff, good habits with that's the general rule with them, was when you have a half a tank in your tank, whether it be in a dump truck or the sheriff car or wherever, getting it topped off. It's not, this fuel provider just provides the gasoline and diesel for us. It's up to kind of a different group to work to try and make our systems more resilient. That's something that we can do further on.
Good, because when I look at this, I think, is this in a place where it's seismically stable?
No, especially the Astoria one, it is not.
I kind of thought that.
It's in the tsunami zone.
All right, so at least if we're asking the questions, we're beginning to make progress toward taking that into account, she said, hopefully. Thank you, sir. I take that as a yes.
Okay, if there's no further questions, look for a motion to approve the contract.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve award of fuel contract to Carson Oil Company, Inc., and authorize the county manager to sign the contract and any amendments.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the award of fuel contract to Carson Oil Company and authorize the county manager to sign the contract and any amendments. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Our next item is item E, 7E, contract for road pulverizing and cement treated base on Waluski Lope Road, page 79.
So on an annual basis, we tend to pulverizing a series of road, which is essentially just grinding up the road with special machines, and then cement-treated base is a common method out here with the type of soil and rock we have to essentially recycle the road and add a combination of Portland cement concrete, just a cement material to really harden up the road. It's a very economical way to reuse the entirety of the road, add material to it, and makes it much stronger than the other alternative to this practice is a lot more rock or other means to make a structural section for the roadways. This is it's commonly used throughout the United States, this cement-treated pulverizing base. It's a practice that we've been doing in this county for the last several decades to have sound infrastructure. Waluski Loop is located in out by the Clatsop County Fairgrounds. It's a loop road. It sustained some damage last in the December of 2015 as a result of a reroute from, there was a major culvert damage on the state highway, and we had a lot of traffic coming around this road, so we're repairing this road. We got some extra money from FHWA to help fund this activity. So we do this every year. We had two bids, Porter-Yet and Kerr. Kerr was significantly lower than the Porter-Yet, and we recommend approval of this contract for $104,805 with Kerr Contractors. Happy to answer any questions.
I'm fascinated by the new technique, but that's not really for the purview of this meeting here. But I've been studying about that, and potholes have become such a huge situation, and it's interesting some of the emergent technologies, to address that, and the cement chunks in the mix. It's very interesting.
It's a way to, it's essentially reconstructing the roadway with a much more reasonable amount of material. And one of the things about this particular roadway or other roadways we have is the curvature is very sharp, and there's lots of water. Drainage is everywhere, or it's right next to a farm field road. We have a lot of narrow right-of-way, so it's really a technique to very limited amount of additional material, which could impact, we could need more right-of-way, or it could impact drainages or other types of infrastructure that's in the near vicinity to the roadway. So it's a good way to kind of makes a real strong road, but a real streamlined kind of section of the road. It's an excellent form. So.
Seeing any other questions or comments for staff?
It's just fun to hang out with Michael Summers. I just learn all kind of stuff. I mean, you're just the best. Thank you.
I should have been an engineer.
Yeah.
Looking for a motion?
Chair Lee?
Yep.
I move to approve contract with Kerr Contractors Oregon, Inc. for $104,805 for pulverizing and cement-treated base, and authorize the county manager to sign the contract and any amendments.
Second.
We have a motion and motion to approve contract with Kerr Contractors Oregon for 104,805 for pulverizing and cement treat base, and authorize the county manager to sign the contract and any amendments. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 7F, purchase of oil for chip seal rock, page 93.
The next two items are very interrelated. This, before you, is the first step is approval of contract with Albina Asphalt for $300,000 to provide chip seal oil. And just briefly, the chip seal program is a pavement preservation. Most of our roadways are asphalt or a layer of oil and rock, oil and rock, oil and rock. This is that oil and rock layer. This oil is not motor oil, it's not fuel that we did earlier. It's very thick, kind of very thick goo with the specific purpose for surfacing a road with a layer of rock, and then it gets compacted with rollers. It's something that we do every year. We program, we spend a lot of time in the November, December time figuring out what we do 3 years in advance on this program. It's a common practice throughout the United States, and we're one of the few counties on the coast in Oregon, or really the coast in any of the coasts throughout the West Coast, that do this program. It really helps stretch that road dollar and preserve our pavement structure. And at the very end of its life, then we do what we previously proposed, or got approved for cement treated base and stuff at the very end of the life of a road. What makes the roads last a lot longer, and it helps spread that money. So we bid this out on an annual basis. We had 2 bids. There's really the 2 companies that can provide this service in this area, Blue Line and Albina Asphalt. Albina Asphalt was the low company. We recommend approval of the contract with Albina.
I have a question.
Sure.
Yes.
So you said that this county stretches it out so that, could you explain that again to me?
It's what I mean by stretch to dollar is this, rather than installing like say an 1.5 inches or 2 inches every 20 years, which is very expensive, and it's not something that we can do. This is something that we do in-house with our own forces. The labor, the installation method is done with our county staff, our road maintenance workers and crew. We don't have the ability to do the pavement, so it makes it, rather than every 20 years, doing a very substantial contractual service to keep the road maintenance, the roads in decent shape. This is once 7 years, and it's just it's about 1/4 to 1/2 inch thick layer, and helps preserve that initial pavement. So that's what I mean by stretch the dollar. It's keeping the condition of the surface of the roadway in good condition, and we measure that condition on every 2 years. We have excellent records of what we do. We have about 229 miles of road in our system that we maintain, and we manage it on kind of a mile-by-mile basis. We measure that condition of the pavement numerically and analyze it through a system and a couple spreadsheets and some other means, judgment and feel and potholes and how it goes through the winter to determine where to put the oil and the rock every summer for about 6 weeks. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Very interesting. I appreciate it.
Looking for motion?
Charlie, I move to approve the contract with Albina Asphalt for purchase and delivery of chip seal oil and authorize the county manager to sign the contract and any amendments.
Second.
We have a motion to second to move to approve contract with Albina Asphalt for purchase and delivery of chip seal oil and authorize the county manager to sign the contract and any amendments. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now we're going to move to item 7G, page 101, and this is again, your ball?
Yep. Once again, this is part of our annual program, which is done in the summer. You guys just approved the purchase of the oil. It has a sister contract with a different provider that provides the rock. It's kind of a special gradation of rock. Gradations is the size and a couple other factors of the rock we use to put on our roadway surfaces. The various, they're kind of spread out throughout the 5 districts in the county of county roads. We got the main one to consider is with Teven Fisher Quarry, which is located just south of Seaside, as the provider that has the type of rock that's best used for us for the chip seal operation. So we recommend approval of this contract with Teven and Fisher LLC. And I can answer any questions.
So I just want to say one thing. You need to keep that road open, right? That needs to be part of the plan when you're doing that emergency planning about which roads to maintain, because you're going to need to get to that quarry to get to that rock when we're repairing things, huh? That's tangential. It's not related to this. That's just to put away in your thought process, because I bet you'll chew on that.
Absolutely, and all the more for alternate routes and other routes, other ways around town, and help further discussion about that later. So.
Thank you.
I just had a question, because you know all these things. I guess this isn't the right question to ask here. Too bad Ed's not around, but didn't the county at one time have its own borrow pit or rock? Didn't they do it a little differently years ago? I can't.
Ed says no.
I only refer to Ted real fast. Ted McLean, who's...
I might be mixing it up with the previous county I lived in.
We crush rock, but not oil.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay, got it.
And we're down in the weeds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It requires specialized. The county does have Clatsop County does have a couple of sources of rock. There's one in Clifton, there's one on 202, kind of like Fishhawk. But we don't own the machinery to do the crushing, blasting, or anything like that. This is specialized at TNT. It's a quarry, existing quarry. So.
Oh, yeah. Looking for a motion?
Chair Lee, I move to approve and contract for the purchase of chip seal rock from Teven and Fisher Quarry LLC and authorize the county manager to sign the contract and any amendments.
Second.
We have a motion to second to approve of contracts for purchase of rock from Teven Fisher Quarry, Big River Construction, Warrenton Fiber, Teven Brothers Land and Timber, and authorize the county manager to sign the contracts and any amendments.
Shirley, sorry.
I'm on the right page?
That's the next one.
The page 101. That's the next one.
I got ahead of myself. That never happens. So let's go back to 101 and...
Page 101.
Read the wrong motion.
Yeah, move to approve contract for purchase of chip seal rock from Teven and Fisher Quarry LLC and authorize the county manager to sign the contract and any amendments. That's the motion we're on.
That's the motion, excuse me. So that's where we have a motion, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Excuse me on that, folks.
No worries.
The next one's 117. That's the next page. So here, similar situation here. That's why I asked the question that seemed a little off, because this has had, it's such as crushing in county-owned pits.
So since I've been here the last 4 years, we did contract one crushing outfit to crush some material. I think it maybe in last fiscal year or the fiscal year before that.
Yeah.
We don't own the crushing is very specialized machinery, and we have to hire that out. Like,
Right.
So this item is, so the roads division purchases rock on an annual basis, starting at this time, and we use it for a variety of, when we install a fish passage culvert, we do about 3 of those a year. Grading, we have about 50 miles of gravel road, which requires maintenance rock, this type of rock from these contracts. We put in, if a culvert's not a fish passage culvert, we can replace those pretty quickly, as there's lots of little ones in smaller roads throughout the 5 districts. And all that requires rockery material to put in drainage and shoulders. We're trying to get into a better shouldering, to shoulder the road on the edge of pavement program. So this is, the contract is actually, 1, 2, 3. I believe it's 4 contracts with 4 different local vendors. We solicit this rock, quotes, every year, right around this time. So we're happy to answer any other questions. So.
Chairman Lee, I have a question, just curiosity. Big River Construction was awarded a contract of about $10,000, and the other all the other contracts are over $100,000. Why is there such a difference in the amounts there?
One is Big River has, it depends on the type of rock that they're purchasing. I'm going to look to this agenda, see if they have the actual quote in here for.
And the other ones had a cost per hour for transport, but I couldn't translate that out of the Big River contract.
And it depends on, depending on the year of where their projects are throughout the county, we kind of strategically ask, because there's quarries, there's a couple in Napa, Swenson area, there's one in Olney, and there's a couple down in Seaside, and there's two in Olney, and then there's one in Seaside. So depending upon where the work is throughout the county, we'll kind of gauge on how much we should buy, depending on the needs of where the road projects are. So we're doing a big project on Westport, and then a series of other projects. So that just so happens to be this year less amount on Big River, the Big River quarry, because of the need to not have to have it moved to.
Not have to transport the rock long distances.
Yeah, so it varied, that which one, how much per vendor varies throughout the year, but the amount of the volume, the valuation is about the same every year, so.
Does it kind of fluctuate back and forth? Does sometimes Big River get that $100,000 contract and other years they don't? Is that how that works, or?
I don't know exactly how much in the past. I didn't bring that data.
I mean, just
with me.
proportion.
But it does vary depending upon the locale and where the projects are. So it may not be as high as 100,000 for them, but it kind of floats around, fluctuates.
Thank you.
Want to make a motion?
Yes, Charlie, I move to approve contracts for purchase of rock from Teven and Fisher Quarry LLC, Big River Construction Incorporated, Warrenton Fiber Company, and Teven Brothers Land and Timber Company LLC, and authorize county manager to sign the contracts and any amendments.
Second.
We got a motion and a second to approve the contracts for purchase of rock from Teven and Fisher Quarry LLC, Big River Construction, Warrenton Fiber, Teven Brothers Land and Timber, and authorize the county manager to sign the contracts and any amendments. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Summers, for your report, your comments, and answering of questions.
I think I'm done.
Good job. Okay, now we're going to move to our final business agenda item, and this is the funding recommendations to outside and. Oh boy, it's getting to be a long day for me.
Yeah.
I've been going since early this morning. Outside agencies, and this is always frustrating to me when it comes to budget time, because I don't know how the Services Advisory Council, I always want to fund every one of these. Yeah, I know you do too.
I was going to say, they do too.
Trust me.
And I know you do too. So let's hear the staff report, and
Maybe we could discuss that in our budget meeting.
well, this is something that I think since you brought it up, I'm just going to say that I think that we could look at working towards, bumping up our general fund dollars to outside agencies. So that's something to consider. So in the meantime, let's see what you got.
Chair Lee and Commissioners, and I'm not sure if I've met Commissioner Sullivan. My name's Greg Ingebretson. I'm the Director of the Juvenile Department.
Hi, Greg.
Nice to meet you. And the issue before the Commission tonight is the recommendation from the Human Services Advisory Council to approve funding to outside agencies. The amount budgeted for the council to consider was $7,500. The council, after reviewing a total of 8 applications, is recommending that the board approve $4,424 to Clatsop Community Action for their fresh produce initiative, and $3,076 to the local court-appointed special advocate, or most commonly known as the CASA program, for volunteer recruitment and training. Linda Crandall, I'd like to thank her for, she's a volunteer member of the council. Thank you for your patience waiting tonight.
And showed up tonight and found out you were last on the agenda, so.
I know, but it's been
We
exciting.
saved the best for last.
There was another member here, but I think Rory had another engagement he had to go to. But Linda is present if the board wishes to inquire about the recommendations that the council has made.
Well, like I said earlier, probably before I should have, I just, it frustrates me that, that we can't do more. You know, in years past, we've, you know, worked with the harbor and Helping Hands. Yeah, so we'll try to figure this out and get some more, you know, make it, you know, add some money to this, and we'll do our best to do that, you know, but I'd be curious if any of the commissioners had any questions about how exactly you came up with the choices, or maybe, you know, it's a tough decision.
I can give you a little bit more information. On this go-round, we had 8 proposals for a total ask of $23,598. And using the Clatsop County scoring grid, the subcommittee independently came up, we independently went through all of the applications, and we all came up with the same 2 proposals as being, while all of them were worthy, these were more worthy. The Clatsop County Community Action it does a fantastic job at distributing healthful food selections to people in the county. It is they've been very, very successful in promoting a more healthful lifestyle. And CASA, what they're planning to use their money for is to train 6 new volunteers, because currently there's 32 children in the dependency system who do not have a CASA volunteer. And so this will allow them to train 6 new volunteers, and that need will be filled.
Yeah, CASA is, I've seen the results firsthand of successes that CASA has given children in a very difficult time. And then when I ran into a CASA person, a youth, when they were like 22. And they just couldn't tell me on how that was kind of the, got them on going, gave them the kind of.
It gave them a voice.
It gave them a voice, and it just changed everything. And I really believe in those fun transitional moments, and they're awesome. And you know, I went through one in my own life when I was a teenager, and or younger even, and so folks, having that is just great. I have a question for staff since we're here. I think in years past, I wish Monica was here. Didn't we went through our budgetary crisis in 2010, and weren't we providing more for agencies, and then we withdrew? I see Heather shaking her head.
I remember 15
At one point it was
at
30,000.
one point.
15,000?
And then I remember when we
It's right here.
didn't have it,
It's on the
and
back?
your board cut it in half.
Yeah, we did.
At
I think
one point, it was
Interestingly
30.
enough, I made a note to myself that maybe 15,000 might be more appropriate.
I think that if this.
2012 was
At
30,000.
one point, it was 30.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember we started, well, you know, we really had, yeah, it was in 2011 and 12, it was it 30?
Yeah, that's what it says for 2011.
Okay, I remember
That
the
doesn't make sense
15,
to me. I thought we went the other way in 2010. But maybe
I don't know.
a little lost.
I
Well,
was-
anyway,
Remember, you cut it in half.
yeah, okay. So anyways, what we need to do,
That's
Is-
when I think it went to 15, and then it was cut in half again.
this doesn't make sense to me.
So we're agreed that we want to look at increasing
Yeah.
it.
But
That
I'm not
much we
going
know.
to get into the weeds on this here. I'm just confused right now. I didn't read the back page before I was getting ready, and then I would have had more questions. But yeah, I think staff, we're looking for more money here for these folks.
Yep.
So let's go ahead and give them what we can right now.
Chair Lee, I move to approve the Human Services Advisory Council recommendations and fund $4,424 to Clatsop Community Action and $3,076 to Clatsop CASA.
Second.
All those, we have a motion to second to, move to approve the Human Services Advisory Council recommendations and fund $4,424 to Clatsop Community Action and $3,076 to Clatsop CASA. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you for that report. And
Thank you so
Good
much.
for your work. We've all had to work under budget constraints. Okay, that concludes our business agenda tonight. Now we move on to Commissioner's report. Commissioner Thompson.
Okay, so you asked about liaisons and relationships. May 8th, after the AOC meeting, I've got a meeting set up with Rocky Barrows from Ford Family Foundation, Elaine Bruce from CCA, the co-chairs of AOC's Housing Subcommittee, myself, Tim Locke from AOC, Josh Bruce from University of Oregon, Greg Wolf from AOC, looking at how do we move forward on having a demonstration project in Clatsop County. What kind of, in order to have manufacturing facility here, in order to have a project. So now looking at who wants to come to the table to talk about having a manufacturing facility in Clatsop County to build modular housing. And by the way, Tim Locke says he's happy to come to Clatsop County anytime we like and talk to us about that. So that's a product of the relationships and networking opportunities. Been working on resilience, was at Seaside Hospital all day yesterday with the very brilliant, capable Yume Wong, who's talking with the 11 coastal hospitals on a special project to look at 2 of the 5 lifeline systems, water and fuel, in order to keep them operating after catastrophic events. Red Cross growing and expanding in Clatsop County, looking at networking all of the kind of civilian resilience responses together. AOC, the subcommittees have been sort of in abeyance for a while because the focus is all on the legislature right now, in which bills are pending that will influence what happens in counties in terms of what can we bring back to Clatsop County to enhance the quality of life for people here. So that's enough.
Thank you for that report. Commissioner Sullivan?
Thank you. I attended the North Coast Opioid and Substance Use Summit in Seaside Friday, April 14th, which is, we all are aware of the serious crisis we have in addiction in our communities here. It was very informative. There will be, part of the senior care network that I participate with, there will be a health literacy conference Tuesday, May 2nd at the Astoria Golf and Country Club in Warrenton. Their guest speaker is going to be Helen Osborne, who's nationally recognized as a speaker in how to communicate with health literacy, which is, how do doctors talk to patients, how do patients talk to the doctors, how do family members find out how to care for their family. And then most important is, well, it's not more important, but last Friday, April 21st, I attended the first FTLAC meeting that has been held this year. And this group represents the State Forest Trust land counties and is charged with providing advice to the Board of Forestry. Clatsop County has a permanent seat on that group provided for in Oregon statute. The meeting was almost 3 hours of presentations and discussion, but the main points that I want to share with the Commission are, first, the State Forester Peter Daugherty noted that so far the Department of Forestry has expended $517,000 on the Lynn County lawsuit. That money comes from the harvest revenue, much of it from Clatsop County, and doesn't include the ODF staff time expenses. That money that could have been used for active forest management, recreation, conservation projects, but instead it was sent to the Department of Justice lawyers. Second, the report from the FTLAC by Chair Josie was given to the Board of Forestry today, urges action on revising the forest management plan without, quote, without a lot of additional analysis, unquote. I asked to have Clatsop support for consideration of habitat conservation plan included in the report to the BOF, but Chair Josie felt it was unnecessary. So failing getting Clatsop view into Josie's report, I sent an email message to the chairman of the Board of Forestry to remind the BOF members of Clatsop core principles. And pressure continues to be applied for revisions to the forest management plan to increase harvest to try to solve the problem of ODF's increasing expenses. As I've said in the past, I don't think there's any way that we're going to be able to cut our way out of this problem. And that's my report today. Thanks.
Thank you for that report, and thank you for going to that meeting. Yeah.
It's going to be ongoing.
It's been going on a long time, long as I've been around.
It's been on.
Okay. Commissioner Nebaker.
Okay, I attended the CCO meeting, Coordinated Care Organization, where they had their statistics expert, and we were presented with graphs and compilation of numbers from 2013 to 2016. And the end result for Clatsop County is this. Clatsop County has practice with, that's my word, practice, because that's what our staff is doing with ACEs, tobacco prevention, alcohol misuse prevention, adolescent well child visits. We are improving our results. We are prioritizing better than the majority of rural counties in the state. We are being looked at to understand why. Within the first year that I was in office, I was in a presentation of the ACEs study. I know we've talked about this. And at that time, I requested that this be shown everywhere as often as possible throughout the county. We have wonderful staff and volunteers here who have shown the film Paper Tigers, which is a drama enacted film about abuse, and ACEs. We have the Lunch Buddy program, trauma-informed care, which is being taught to healthcare workers and teachers, dentists, and that is learning how to treat people realizing they may have experienced trauma, which is very different. It's just a difference in how we see people, because it's so prevalent that children are traumatized, become adults, and have lots of problems. But while they're children, they are needing to be treated differently. Nobody knows if a child has trauma or not, so we might as well just treat everybody this way. It doesn't really take any more effort. It's just a different mindset, shift in paradigms. Our high school graduation rates have improved since 2013, and more of our graduates are going into college. Education is the precursor of economic well-being. This is part of what they showed in the statistics. Those with trauma, and the numbers are high here, they're more challenged with obtaining education. These statistics point to the overwhelming importance of behavioral health and well-being and the choices we make in order to help people make better choices. Those who have a high score in ACEs have statistically higher rates of substance abuse, diabetes, and other serious illnesses, which leads to very costly medical issues, mental health issues, suicide attempts, and suicides. And what we've learned is that through knowledge, education about trauma, nurturing, if you will, of children and adults who have experienced trauma, healing takes place, and better choices are made by those individuals who have high scores with treatment. Now we are looking at greater efforts towards prevention of these traumas by supporting children in the womb through support for the mothers. It is with partnering of different county and other organizations, staff, volunteers through informed actions and practices that we can continue to improve our statistics and bring about a better quality of life here in Clatsop County, lower our long-term health care, high health and mental health care costs. So our trend at this time from 2013 to 16 is a positive one. I attended the elected officials meeting with Suzanne Bonamici, and I know several of the other commissioners did too, and the town hall. That was very interesting. Of all the town hall meetings that I've been to with her, this was 5 times greater number, 10 times greater number?
Yeah, easily, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I also attended the Arts Council meeting. They're investigating ways to inform, well, they already talked about this, about public art. The Royal Nebuchadnezzar Scholarship is coming up, and there's been very few people who have applied, so if you know of any students that could use money for education, please let them know. I think the beginning of May is the deadline. Cash prizes were awarded to 3 high school students who were among 100 that submitted works. 50 were juried in for a one-day exhibit through AVA. This was funded by the Miss B Scholarship, and 12 of the students sold work, and 75% went to the student artists. So this is just another aspect of support for the arts among youth and education. Let's see. I wanted to say that I asked Congresswoman Bonamici how it's going with adding A to STEM for STEAM. And she said that the number of congressional representatives who represent this is growing. It's in the high 80s now. I was very happy to hear that. On Friday, May 13th, Governor Brown is coming in on a horse to measure the high tide line in Cannon Beach.
Really?
Mm-hmm. There will be an arts panel and parks master plan information and other planned festivities for that day. It's the commemoration of the public beach bill and Tom McCall's visit in 1977.
Cool.
It's the 50-year anniversary. And, oh my goodness, there's more, I'm sorry. Let's see. Okay, this is $7,500. This is human services. We already know about that. Amy Baker was at the meeting. This was concerning. She said CBH is writing off $40,000 each month. Yeah.
Cool.
They have reserves, but it's not sustainable. They either are going to have or they do have a health assister to get people re-signed up for OHP. I guess that's the reason that the money is not coming in, because it's so difficult for people to sign up for OHP. It's the paperwork, and they have to do this every year. It's really hard for them. So they need people that can help them. As you might remember, in the beginning when the Affordable Care Act started, they had people everywhere throughout the county, helping people to sign up, but then that went away. So we need that. CBH will not be taking private insurance except MODA for now. So people who have private insurance have to go to a therapist outside of CBH. But the wait list can be like 2 months to get into a private therapist. So this is a hardship. Let's see. They're looking at finding a better way to find people who need mental health assistance that aren't getting treatment. The Respite Center continues to challenge. Residential services at the center are finally approved by the state, and that will help with funding. One 18-year-old who'd come from a state facility, who'd been locked in a facility for 4 years, came and did quite well, transitioning to a job. That's big.
That's big.
Yeah. There's a good staff on board at the Respite Center with 9 months' experience. Safe room is needed for people who are psychotic, as they are now typically in the emergency rooms. The hospitals don't have a safe room. And CBH will be partnering with Coastal Yakima, an organization that's now here. They have psychiatrists, and those are needed by some of the clients. The Developmental Disabilities Organization was given an above-average rating. And we will be hearing about a better way for needle exchange and disposal, as we have hepatitis C and syphilis in the county, and this can spread quickly through needle sharing. That's everything I have.
You can get the Royal Nebuchadnezzar Scholarship on the website. You want applicants? On the county website.
Yeah. Can that be on the county website?
I didn't hear you.
Oh, I was
Can
thinking.
scholarships be on the
what
county
about
website?
Need for applicants for the Royal Nebuchadnezzar Scholarship on the county website.
For what now?
For the scholarship, since they don't have any and it's a great scholarship.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Oh, the Royal Nebuchar Scholarship, they're seeking applicants. Perhaps there's a part for news or calendar or somewhere on the website for that. Seeking applicants.
I don't know. Is that?
Well, Tom Bennett does the
Something.
community liaison or something like that.
Just a
Isn't
thought.
that what he does, or?
Yeah, I'll have to look at that. I mean, I don't know what our connection is, but.
Yeah.
That would be
dig into
good.
that a little.
I have
Commissioner-
nothing to
oh,
report.
Okay.
Nothing that wasn't already covered.
Great. I've got a few items. Attended the Oregon Coastal Zone Management Association executive and legislative meetings today, and I gave a note out today that's a letter that I wrote and we wrote to the Coastal Caucus. We sent one to the governor, and I think I'm going to put one in an envelope and send it to Mr. Trump. And I've been complimented. I collaborated with people who are much smarter than I am, and can take my first draft and turn it into a very well-written, a well-written letter, in my opinion, and in the opinions of the Oregon Coastal Zone Management Executive Committee. What we are addressing is, and this is just the tip of the iceberg, is the problems with the defunding of the NOAA. The next letter is going to be, and I would like the board to consider, we see how the budget develops, the skinny budget develops, but Coast Guard, to me, is a no-passer on as far as when it comes to the Coast Guard budget. We have to work to really make sure that we preserve the helicopter facility in Newport, and also strengthen, not weaken, our assets here at the mouth of the Columbia River sector, Columbia.
If I could just add, Mr. Chair, when I asked how was the Columbia going to be cleared so that it was useful for transportation after Cascadia, it's the Coast Guard and the Army Corps of Engineers who will do both the Willamette and the Columbia. So if we don't have a Coast Guard here, that it's a compounding effect.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is major stuff here. And so this is something we have to focus on. Now, this letter basically focuses on preserving funding for Coastal Zone Sea Grant, Coastal Zone Management Association. Basically, if the budget goes the way they want, that organization is going to go away, Sea Grant's going to go away. We're doing some really, really important studies on ocean acidification to our oyster beds. This is just huge. The other item is, what was it? I'm sorry, it's been a long day. I've been going since early this morning. Yeah, this is pretty much it. I know. I was going to send you also the Oregon Coastal Zone Management Associations on some bills and that are going through, and we already had the first cutoff date for bills, and we've had a few that have made it through. One of the more interesting bills that I've been tracking and Oregon Coastal Zone Management Association is tracking is kind of more of a better news bill that seems to be getting in by the leadership of Representative David Brock Smith, who has been playing with this group, is the Oregon Trail. There's the Oregon Coastal Trail, and we're trying to get enough money. We're doing a feasibility study right now, but by 2020, we want to connect the unconnected segments of the Oregon Trail. And this is kind of a pet project for me because I like to hike, and I like to hike the coast, and I like to go into the woods because it makes me feel better, right? And so the plan is if we can push this through and amazingly get some funding, we're going to try to connect the little chunks of the Oregon Trail, and this is good for a lot of things because, you know, we've seen the successes of like the PCT and the Appalachian Trail, and the Oregon Coastal Trail can be a great asset for our coastal communities for tourism and recreation. And that's all I have right now.
Is Travel Oregon working on that project too? Because I've heard about that at work.
I think that David has been very good at reaching out and lobbying to anyone and anyone who could get, you know, some skin in the game on this trail. And
I think that could be big.
You know, there's
for
obviously
Oregon.
some much better items and bigger, you know, things going on. But to me, this is kind of like a bright spot in a somewhat often challenging situation. And I'll send the rest of the bills. There's some other stuff in there that are quite not, they're not as sugary, but they're important bills. And if you have any concern of our support through this organization that I'm the chair of right now, that if you have any concern that this is kind of concerning to you or you don't really support this bill, definitely bring that back to me. I don't foresee that, but that's important that you bring those concerns to me or that we can get some more information on them. And other than that, that's all I have. And County Manager.
Just a couple of things, very briefly. I know you're all aware, looks like May 16th will be the joint city-county meeting. That'll be at McMenamins in Gerhardt. Looks like we'll plan that from about 5:30 to 7:30. We also have our board goal-setting session coming up on May 3rd. Also wanted to mention and just give you a little bit of an update. You'll get more detail here in May on the preschool feasibility study. We will be Friday, May 5th. There's a committee that will basically be interviewing the intermediaries, those firms that have responded to be the intermediaries, and assuming that the committee chooses to recommend one of those to you in the contract to you probably sometime in May. So that process is also moving along. There also, as you recall, we discussed that there is a part-time, limited duration, I guess you want to call it, data assistant with that project. And so we're also in the mode of looking for who that person would be as well. So that project moves along, but when that contract is ready, and even if it isn't, Dan should be here in May to give a more detailed update, at least what we've been doing so far. But it's still early yet, but we're starting to get into when the really heavy-duty work is going to start here in the next month or two, once we can find an intermediary. So one of the interesting things we found in looking at that, first of all, that it's a very specialized kind of thing. There aren't that many firms out there. One of the firms that we've gotten a proposal from has actually already been hired by 3 or 4 other communities that got these same feasibility grants. And we've already started to have a discussion about, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, if they're doing this 3 or 4 other communities, are they going to have time for us? Or maybe because they're doing it in other communities, they're going to have a lot of experience and bring a lot of different perspective to this. So that process is starting to move, and it's a limited duration process. So we're going to have to keep it moving and wrap it up in about a year.
We just had the national, didn't you just have a national meeting of all 5 of the communities?
That was way to Wellville. The preschool feasibility study, there were 8 of these that were funded in the country. And so when I was referring to that intermediary, they've been hired by, I think, 3 of those other 7 that got these feasibility grants. Excuse me. Way to Wellville is supportive of this, but it's a separate organization. And we did just host the National Way to Wellville Conference here in, they were really all over Clatsop County, but they kind of headquartered here in Astoria. So they were here last week for 3 days.
And that was all the communities that were involved?
Those are the 5 communities that were selected to participate in Way to Wellville.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Very good.
So, does anybody have any questions?
No? You're good to go. Meeting's adjourned. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.